but I'm happy to be back.
Your worthiness comes from the fact that God made you. That's what makes you worthy. That's all you need. You don't need anything else.
Yes, it
You don't
does.
need anyone. You don't need anything else. You don't need anyone else. And you just make sure you get right. And I'm a religious woman, so that's where I'm going to come. I'm going to come to you from there. But you just make sure that you're resonating with all that is the highest and the best in the universe, and then you keep on going.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, we'll talk in a little bit. Okay, so really,
Uh-huh.
really quick here. Reverend Thurston.
Yes.
Then we'll have Dr. Knighton.
Yes.
Then we'll have Chappelle Glide read at 6:30, followed by Dwight McKean and Kitty Kurth. That's a cool name.
Yes. Kitty.
I love that.
I love Kitty. That's my girl.
Yes, followed by Kevin Lampy.
Her husband.
Oh, it is. Oh,
Kevin.
Really?
Kevin and Kitty. I jokingly say that he's a credit to the male species. It's what they say about.
Oh, this is gonna be fun.
Oh, they're wonderful. They're great people.
All right, and then we will have Paul Benlis from 7 to 7:30, and then the last segment will be John Nichols.
Fantastic, because they're having a big election up in Wisconsin today.
Oh, I did not.
There are elections all over the place.
Is it for their mayor?
Supreme Court.
Okay.
I mean, you just name it. They have a lot going on. And that's why it's important to know, what's going on out here. Because there is a lot that is going on all over.
Absolutely. Okay, I'm going to let you go. We're running out of time here a little bit. I'm going to call up the pastor.
Okay.
I'll call you first.
Yes, and if you would, let me know, like I said, let me know. You did add the 3 minutes. Very good.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
I did. We don't got to worry.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
Talk to you in a minute.
All right, sweetie. Thank you. Hello.
Hello.
Okay, we have the pastor on.
So I haven't talked to you in so long. No, I'm going to put you through and I'm going to call him up, okay?
Okay, fantastic. Okay.
Miss Jackson, we have Pastor Thurston on.
Okay, Pastor Thurston, how are you?
Miss Jackson, I'm doing well today. How are you?
I am doing well. Thank you so much. Thank you. When are you going to be preaching at church again?
Oh, I don't know. I just the past 2 Sundays from my dad, he hasn't given me the schedule for next month yet.
Okay, let me know so I can if you just give me a little bit of a heads up so I can get out of my job as quickly, because I can always go back, right? Because I have some things that I need to do there. After
Thurston, I have your audio. Are you on speaker by any chance?
I am. You need me to come off?
Yes.
I do. It would so make you sound better.
Oh.
All right.
We want to get your sweet voice out to the world.
Oh my goodness, landing on thick. I love it.
But
Is this what's better?
oh man, so much better. So much better. Thanks for doing that for me. You guys both sound great over Facebook. Your audio's great.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
We have about 2 minutes and 10 seconds till we go
Okay,
live.
fantastic. I'm trying to figure out what's going on with this here. Okay. Okay. Master Thurston, I am trying to pull something up and it will not cooperate. Oh boy. Oh, honey, it's like, would you just go on and print already? Like, just come on, print. Hey, everybody, how you doing? Print.
We have about 30 seconds.
Okay. All right. Let the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in thy sight. Amen. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Tuesday, February 21st, 2023, WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station. That is my home, and my home is also AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. We've got a lot to talk about today. We are just days away from the mayoral election here in Chicago. We hope that you are voting. It is the election season, as Kevin Lampe, who will be joining us in just a few minutes, has been telling us. You can now vote in all 50 wards. So everybody, there is an opportunity for you to vote right now. 4 years ago, at this time in the election cycle, not even 3,000 people have voted, but now more than 40,000 people have voted. It's an extraordinarily engaged Chicago population. Voter turnout is extremely high, at least relatively speaking. So I want to know if you voted. Have you chosen anyone? Are you still holding out? About 20% of those likely voters have not chosen a candidate yet. So call me at 773-763-WCPT, 773-763-9278. We want to hear from you. I'm going to be talking with Paul Vallis, the former CEO of the Chicago Public Schools, someone who's been engaged in education and in so many activities all around the country. Indeed, on all of the major polls, he is leading. He's running on law and order. Many people are very concerned about crime, but when you talk to Black and brown communities, the concerns are much broader. They're much deeper. I mean, because they connect crime to a lot of intersectional issues, the lack of educational opportunities, not making enough money on your job, losing homes. We have a shrinking population of working people in Chicago, particularly Black people, and on and on and on it goes. Cannot wait to talk with him and talk with him about what some people are saying is, look, this law and order in Chicago and running on law and order at this time has traditionally, it's like dog whistle politics, but perhaps he has another take on it. I'm sure that he does. So we cannot wait to hear from him. Of course, John Nichols will be talking to us about elections yesterday in Wisconsin. That's what's happening up there. And of course, Kitty Kurth, Kevin Lampe, and Dwight McKee will be talking with us about what we should be looking for in the Chicago mayoral election. Dr. Shanina Knighton will talk with us about an explosion they had in Cleveland. Boy, oh boy, we've had about 6 train derailments already this month. There's a lot going on, but everyone's looking at East Palestine. The EPA administration is on his way back there because people are sick and fish are dying and animals are dying. And if you go to the rivers, lakes, and streams, Pastor Thurston, there was a gentleman on Twitter who stuck a pole in it. He said, "Oh, this water looks pristine." And he started shaking the pole out in the river, and foam came up. I mean, it was like bubbling. It was a hot bubbling mess. Unbelievable. This is some of the best farmland in the United States. It has been decimated. It's been destroyed. Whew, let's talk about it on the Santita Jackson Show, everybody. All right. 35 degrees will be the high in Chicago. It will be cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul. 19 degrees, it will be snowy, but they're expecting a lot of snow up there in Minneapolis, St. Paul. 10 to 20 inches. We have a massive weather front that is moving through. We're going to be talking about that in just a couple of minutes. In the NBA, the Golden Knights will be playing Chicago. That is in the NHL. And of course, everybody's still relaxing from the NBA All-Star Weekend. Yeah, my father was there and he had a ball. And the Kings will be playing the Wild. What else is going on in the United States? President Biden has had a tremendous trip in Ukraine, everybody. He met President Zelensky yesterday, reiterating U.S. support for Ukraine and announcing new military assistance and sanctions against Russia. Indeed, Republicans and some Democrats are pushing back against that assistance, particularly when you see a disaster like East Palestine, Ohio, and other places all around the country that need America's money. That's right. A major winter storm is set to impact millions across the United States this week, including Minneapolis, St. Paul. We're supposed to get rain here in Chicago, but snow just to the south of us. Heavy snow, dangerous winds, possible blizzard conditions, and for some, the coldest temperatures of the season, everybody. Snow and rain are already falling across the Pacific Northwest, adding to the region's already blockbuster snow season. Praying for everybody everywhere. A magnitude 6.3 aftershock struck southern Turkey on Monday, killing 3 people and injuring hundreds of others. 2 weeks after a massive quake killed more than 46,000 people, and the numbers continue to mount. And so let us go to Pastor Stephen Thurston, New Covenant Missionary Baptist Church. So excited about all that you are doing. Of course, you have your book and Mirror Moments. And then, of course, you have your Facebook Live where you're engaging a lot of people, really helping us to get well. So now, you moved the time of the Facebook Live, did you not, Pastor?
I did. I moved it to Friday at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Okay. Fridays at 3 p.m. Fridays at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. Well, what is the good news today? I need some. We all do. Because we're about to prepare for this crazy storm front. And there's so much going on all at one time. Help me.
Yeah. Well, I want to cater today's good news to those listening in who fall in the categories of either people pleasers or recovering people pleasers. So if the shoe fits, I just need y'all to wear it today, tied up, and just run with it. Listen, those individuals who regularly subvert their own needs for the needs of others, those individuals who spend years saying yes when you really know, signing up for commitments you'd rather avoid and occupying your mind with others' desires. Yeah, I'm talking to you today. The problem with the condition of people pleasing is that when you finally clear out the clutter, put yourself first, you look around at the empty space, bewildered with endless questions. What do I want? What does true happiness look like for me? What would a life lived on my own terms be like? For some of you, these questions provide anxiety, because asking what you really want leads you to look fear straight in the eye. You're being responsible for your own happiness. It's experience both potent and entirely surmountable. If you're brave enough to connect with your innermost desires. When we strongly connect to our dreams and desires, we begin to set boundaries with other people so that we can reach them and slowly start finding the confidence to speak our truth. Our dreams and desires remind us how communicating authentically will actually change our lives and the lives of our loved ones for the better. For this reason, recovering people pleasers need to reclaim their familiarity with their inner voice and innermost needs. You cannot communicate authentically with others if you can't communicate authentically with self first. Now, as you overcome your attention to people pleasing, here are a few helpful tricks to help you connect with your innermost self and uncover what you really want in all areas of your life. Number one, I want you to label your feelings. Many of us have become so attuned to the feelings of others that our own feelings are elusive strangers, entirely unrecognizable to us. But our feelings are critical guideposts as we learn how to prioritize our own needs. And if we're able to identify and own them, life's going to be different. Notice the feelings that signal that you're moving towards something that excites you, as well as those feelings that signal that something really isn't right for you, or that you need to set boundaries with others. Number two, leave the system. Sometimes, Santita, our deepest desires are buried under layers of fear, particularly the fear of seeming selfish or the fear of disappointing others. One way to dig beneath the fear is to mentally remove ourselves from the systems of which we're a part. The reality is that previously unacknowledged desires can emerge when you extricate yourself from the pressure and the influences of the systems that we engage in. Number three, make a wish. Some of you have never given yourself permission to suspend reality, if only for a moment, to dream big. Making a wish allows you to dive into your dreams without stopping yourself with what ifs, hows, and I could never do that. Once you speak your desires out loud, you can no longer ignore their truth, and you should be inspired to begin strategizing how to bring them into reality. Practice suspending reality to discover what you crave. Imagine that you could make a wish that would be instantly granted, or imagine that you could walk through a door and your ideal life waited on the other side. Fourth and finally, start small. If you've been in the habit of people pleasing for a long time, it might be challenging to immediately identify your own big dreams. You may feel that you truly don't know what you want right now. And guess what? That's totally normal. Living your truth and communicating authentically are muscles. When you exercise them regularly, they become stronger with time. So give yourself permission to start small. Give your innermost time to surface. And by pursuing your small desires, you begin to learn to trust yourself. You begin to realize that you are fully capable of being your own advocate and building the life that you want and desire. I want you to pay special attention to how it feels to meet your needs. Be patient. With the passage of time, bigger dreams will make themselves known in your heart. Authentic communication is a two-way street. We must speak truthfully to ourselves before we can speak truthfully to others. And And once we become familiar with what we really want, we can imagine a world where we replace old habits like people pleasing with new visions for a brighter future. And so today's your day to pivot from people pleasing.
Killing me softly with his song, killing me softly with his song, telling my whole life with his words, killing me softly. I felt all flushed with fever, embarrassed by the crowd. I felt he found my letters and read each one out loud. Oh, I'm sorry. It was the good news. Oh, man. Boy, oh boy. You know what? That I think we have to understand that your religious training is supposed to help you to get better as a human being. You can't just live so far up in the clouds that you can't do anything on earth. That's what this is for. Thank you so much for that. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Again, when can we catch you on Facebook Live?
This Friday, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time, I'll be talking about how to lead difficult people. So if you're in any form of leadership, you want to tune in Friday, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time.
How to lead difficult people?
Yes, ma'am. How to lead difficult people.
Killing me. So Joyce is with me today. She said, "Come on, Santita, killing me softly." Yeah, and I used to do the ooh ah to that because I sang for Miss Flack for several years. So there we go. La 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 la. Yeah, I did all of that, but that stuff means so much to me now. Woo! Oh, love you, Pastor Stephen Thurston. Pastor Stephen Thurston, everybody. But you know, we have got Dr. Shanita Knighton, one of the world's leading infection preventionists. Indeed, she leads epidemiologists and infection preventionists as they come together to help resolve our health issues. And we need them now more than ever. Talk to me, because we're looking at what's happening in East Palestine, Ohio. We've had other accidents where chemicals have been spilling over the past month. Not to this extent, because that's happening in East Palestine, Ohio is of such consequence, and the corporate media are ignoring it, and so much of our farmland's been destroyed. I hope they're not going to be planting anything in that, because that's going to be a mess. But you said something happened in Cleveland, and you wanted to talk about that today, Dr. Knighton.
Yes, so it's interesting. So, Bedford, Ohio, which is like literally about 15-minute commute, maybe 20-minute commute from my home, like you actually had more than a dozen injured and one killed in explosion at a metal manufacturing facility near Bedford. And so that occurred yesterday, and if you would have like literally seen the rubble, seen, so much that was going on out there, the thing is, we think about what occurs in the actual factory itself, but then what we don't think about is the debris. We don't think about the debris, we don't think about the smoke. So yes, as you think about the individuals that were injured, you're also thinking about the individuals that, long story short, are going to face the long-term consequences as a result of that. Unfortunately, you brought up something yesterday, Santita, that was interesting, key, but it holds true when we think about Palestine, when we think about a lot of the corporations and different things that do not keep up with compliance. I think about the Twin City Bridge, right, where there was violations on that bridge and it never got repaired, and look at what it ended up happening. So it's that accountability factor that continues to be ignored, and because of that, the things that we tend to not think about because we think structurally someone is doing their job is the things that we have to worry more about today, more so than what we ever have. And so with that being said, it goes back to that conversation that we had where things infrastructurally can be set up in, centuries ago, or it could be more than 100 years old, and there's no hope of repairing it. There's been no plans to repair it, or we're still using old methodologies because someone doesn't want to make that investment
and updating it. And so you look at those types of issues and you say to yourself, how close am I to a situation such as East Palestine? And I emphasize that if that is the case, because everyone cannot move, everyone cannot afford to find ways to get away from things, when stuff like this happens, what should you have? Is making sure that if you can vacate, you have your emergency supply of medication that is packed up. It's making sure that you have something, have things together, maybe a change of clothes if you need to just get up and go. It's making sure that you have water just in case you need to get up and go. And so sometimes we don't think about these things because we say to ourselves that an accident is far away from us because it's not a natural disaster. But as we see with things blowing up and things happening, it's very well possible that it can happen to any of us.
I'm glad that you brought that up because that's why they're called accidents. Or certainly they catch us by surprise. And so, having your meds, having clothes, even in your car, because, I remember we had a snowstorm here, maybe it was 10 years ago now. And cars were abandoned on now what is DuSable Lakeshore Drive because the snowstorm became so intense. People got stuck in their cars. They just had to try and get home. They had to walk home. They had to leave their cars on the highway that is on our lakefront. But you know what? Think about it. Many of us, we're blessed to have insurance, but insurance won't let you buy your medicine in advance. You have to buy just enough for the month. What do we do then? Because you have to wait for that to kick in. I'd love to have an extra supply. I would, but
Well, the thing is that it's like even if you don't have, like, let's say, access to an extra supply, and let's say you're on your last couple of days worth of medications, right now, like I get it, everybody can't do a 90-day mail order. However, the thing is we have to think about what is most important, and that is getting to somewhere safe. Once you get to somewhere safe, it's then having access to a phone, it's getting access to a computer or some sort of resource that you can reorder.
Okay. All right. Dr. Shanita Knighton, everybody. Her handle is Hey Dr. Nina, HEYDRNINA. That's right. You're going to get some great advice just like this because as she has pointed out, these accidents are happening all around us and you need to be prepared. You need to have bottled water at home. You might not be able to use the water from the tap. You need to get your medicines. You need to have clothes packed and ready to go just in case you have to leave. More of the Santita Jackson Show, the Chicago mayoral race. Just a few minutes. Dr. Knighton, it's always a joy to hear your voice.
Absolutely. And Santita, it's so crazy. I didn't even get into the second one, but it was two explosions. One in Warren, Ohio happened 2 days ago, and then the other one in Bedford just happened yesterday.
No, I wish, look, we can go right back to it tomorrow. I don't have a problem with that at all. Because I think we have got to deal with the fact that this is a problem. And see, my mother, everybody would laugh because we, call her the survivalist because she has water, sardines, all this stuff. She said, hey, if something happens here, your father and I are okay because I have figured it out. What y'all gonna do? We like come to you. She said, oh no. I have trained you. You already know what you're supposed to do. You better go on and get you some food and some crackers. And, I said, wow, she has got a point. She has got a point. So.
Yeah, no, that's not something to say. That's the thing. When your back is up against the wall, you don't care about what you want to eat. You care about the fact that you're going to eat.
That's right.
So, I think I've always emphasized that to people.
Especially my kids when they tell me I'm starving. I'm like, you need to bless that name.
I mean, you just want something like right now. I'm like, these kids, they have, you're right, they have no idea. They don't know.
Wait out what you want. That's what it is.
They do. Oh, they do. They have no idea. Bless their hearts. They just don't know. And you just, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they're talking about. And help me from hitting them upside the head. Yes, I said it, you all. Corporal punishment. Pardon me. Mm-hmm. Oh Lord, it's just, girl, it's too much. You know, we got this mayoral race here. Boy, girl, it is a whole lot. Okay. Okay. Ready, print? All right, so come on and print then. Okay. All right. All right. I'm sorry. I'm trying to find something here. All right. So let me see if this will come through. Oh, it's just so much. You know, this is, okay. Sorry, honey. I'm trying to find something here. And I cannot find it. Okay.
Miss Jackson, we have about 25 seconds till we air. We have Miss Wells on, Dwight McKee, and Kitty Kirk, and we are still getting up Kevin Lampy.
Okay, fantastic. Kitty, you're off.
When they have them.
Okay, just want to make sure we don't have Kitty on earbuds today. Yes.
So we do. How did you make me now on earbuds?
Yeah, because it yeah, I couldn't use your Yep.
She sounds okay to me.
It really it goes in and out.
Here we go.
Okay, so kill the earphones. Hey everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. We're going to have Paul Vallis on with us, the former CEO of Chicago Public Schools. He is leading on all the major polls, and we have heightened interest in this mayoral race here in Chicago. Indeed, 4 years ago this time, not even 3,000 people had voted. Now more than 40,000 people have voted. That's right. People are very, very engaged in this. What does that mean? And what does it mean that in key South and West Side neighborhoods that the engagement is not as strong? Yep, according to a report from the tribe. And then there's new polling that shows that even as people talk about the fractures between the Black and Brown communities, that there is common ground on key issues among Black and Latino voters in Chicago. There's a lot to talk about as we get prepared to talk with Paul Vallis, who is leading in all of the major polling around this race. But you've got something special coming up, Chapearl, just I guess in a week's time. What's going on, Chapearl?
Yes, Santita, we are having our annual gala for the Courtney Copeland Memorial Foundation. That's going to be on March 3rd, 2023 at the JLM Community Center. So we're asking everyone to come out and support us, because the money raised, it actually goes to support our programs, including our college scholarship fund, and so we can send kids to college. So please visit www.copelandmemorial.com. That's www.copelandmemorial.com to purchase your ticket. And if you cannot go yourself, please consider sponsoring a family member for those who have lost a child to gun violence in Chicago. So that's www.copelandmemorial.com. Thank you so much, Santita.
No, thank you very much. Thank you for the wonderful work that you are doing. All right, everybody. Early voting is surging in Chicago in a real way. It's still lagging behind in key South and West Side neighborhoods, though, according to the tribe. And then there's a report that is now surging in the Black community that is talking about Paul Vallis' son, who was a police officer. He was one of 3 police officers who was involved in a fatal shooting of a young Black man. But it occurred in Texas, but it was found that young Mr. Vallis did not pull the trigger, was not involved in it. But, it's very important to address these issues because all this stuff is out here. You want to allay people's fears, put rumors to rest, and establish fact as we establish the facts as they are as we go into this election season. So we have got Kitty Kurth, one of the world's leading political consultants, political organizers. She has done campaigns not just in Chicago and throughout the United States, but all around the world. Brilliant. She and Kevin Lampe, her husband. It's Kurth Lampe Worldwide. They consult with everybody. And of course, Dwight McKee, brilliant social scientist. So let's get right to it. Dwight McKee, when you see the surging in the vote, I mean, not even 3,000 people have voted by this time 4 years ago, but now more than 40,000 people have voted. But there's still a lag in the vote on the South and West sides. What does that say to you?
Well, it says to me that it may have given Vallis one up. Depending on the demographics of the area in Chicago is so segregated that within 2 blocks, it can be an all-white community, cross it over to an all-Hispanic community, then cross it over to an all-black community. And so you need a little more information to come to some real conclusions. But intuitively, I see it may give Vallis an advantage in the early runnings.
Kitty Kurth, what do you see? I mean, because these numbers are pretty remarkable. Kitty Kurth? Ooh, Kitty Kurth?
Let's get geeky for a minute. Let's think about where the hottest contested aldermanic races are, and that's going to be one of the things really driving the turnout. And in 2 of the wards where Vallis probably has his highest turnout, Brendan Riley's ward, the 42nd ward, and the 2nd ward, Brian Hopkins' ward, both of those aldermen are supporting Vallis, but neither of those aldermen have any opposition. So are their constituents really going to be, excited about coming out to the polls?
Well, are they? Are they? I mean, we're seeing, according to this report from the tribe, early voting began, of course, on January 26th, but in all 50 wards on the 13th of February. And they say with little more than a week to go until Election Day on February 28th, of course, your husband has said, Kevin Lampe said, this is election season, and that is true. Early voting in Chicago is highest in the 19th and 41st wards in the city's far southwest and northwest corners, and lowest in the 5th ward, my place in South Shore, and the 28th ward on the south side. Now let's get geeky about that.
The only thing that's surprising to me about that is that the 5th ward has a pretty robust aldermanic race. I'm surprised the vote isn't higher there. The 19th ward is traditionally the highest turnout ward, along with, the 14th and the 13th. But I think that there's a lot of voters, me, that are thinking about it and going to make up their minds closer to the election. I was actually surprised to hear that early voting was up.
Yeah, Kitty Kurth, I was absolutely shocked, and particularly when you look at what was going on 4 years ago. But then 4 years ago, it seems that, it's like our current mayor, Lori Lightfoot, came out of nowhere. When we saw her in the debates, she was so impressive that she won our votes. Do you think that's what's happening now?
I think people are weighing their choices. I think that a lot of people have been trying to wait and see, is one of these 9 candidates going to jump ahead? Can I support somebody that's, unfortunately for Mayor Lightfoot, I think a lot of people are saying somebody that's not Mayor Lightfoot and somebody that is not Paul Vallis. People are looking, is Chile Garcia stronger this week? Is Brandon Johnson stronger this week? Who is out there that provides an acceptable choice?
Kevin Lampe, what's your assessment of this landscape?
Well, one thing to take into account is that you can vote at any location in the city for wherever you live in the city. So if you live, in the 5th ward and you work in the 2nd ward, you can vote there. So that is a part of the situation where people can, they vote where they want to vote, but they don't have to vote in the neighborhood. You can pick and choose. You get a ballot based upon where you live as opposed to where you are voting. I think the other thing that we have is because there's been such emphasis on getting out the vote and protecting your right to vote from the midterm elections just recently last November, that people are even more motivated to show up. And I think we're seeing that in turnouts around the city. And then I think people are, as Kitty was just saying, they're thinking, okay, we can accept the fact that Paul Vallis, with his Douglas of politics, has been able to motivate people to vote for him. Mm-hmm. Who do we think is going to have the best chance of getting into the runoff and beating him? I think there's a large percentage of voters that are still trying to decide who is going to be that person that they want to put into the runoff.
Well, we're talking with Kitty Kurth, Kevin Lampe, Dwight McKee about the Chicago mayoral race. At the top of the hour, we're going to be speaking with former Chicago Public Schools CEO, Paul Vallis, about he is the front runner in the race according to all of the polls in this 9-person field. But it's a dynamic race, everybody. It's a dynamic race, and your vote is really going to matter. Voting is open in all 50 wards. Please get out there and vote. The voter turnout is quite high, relatively speaking. This time, 4 years ago, not even 3,000 people had voted. Now more than 40,000 people have voted. What do you think is driving people to the polls? Dwight McKee, what's driving people to the polls? I was shocked by the numbers. I was reading Laura Washington's column. I think she just does fine work. And I said, wait a minute, there's a surge? Because I don't feel a buzz out here, but I guess people are really interested in this race. Or somebody's interested, Dwight.
Well, I think one thing is perhaps there are more choices and there are more options. And so, they're really more customized to different constituencies and different bases. And so, I think that's helping drive people to the poll. I think that there's more people have a more emotional commitment and more exposure to the candidates. Last year at this time, nobody even knew who Lori was. The last campaign, and Willie was kind of just emerging. But in these last 3-4 years, I think Willie has been able to establish himself as a legitimate personality and create a legitimate traction with a certain amount of people that didn't really know him 4 or 5 years ago, or didn't see him as a legitimate candidate 4 or 5 years ago. I think some of these younger guys is also creating a momentum and an interest. Guys like Green, who are running, who brings a new dynamic to the experience. I think that will create some momentum that didn't exist 4 years ago in the last campaign, because you really didn't have a high-profile, attractive candidate like some other young black guys that's running now. And I think that Huey being involved creates a certain momentum himself. Because 4 years ago, he really wasn't in Congress when he didn't have a kind of track record that people could look at. And you didn't have as large of a Hispanic community and as engaging and Hispanic community as you do now. And so I think there's some factors that exist today that didn't exist 4 years ago.
Do you think, Kitty Kurth, do you expect this trend to continue? I mean, well, first of all, are you surprised that voter turnout is as high as it is? Are you surprised about the interest in the campaign? Because, at some point when you see all 9 people, you just you almost can get paralyzed, what the analysis paralysis. It's like, it's like the system just overloaded,
Exactly, but remember, like I said earlier, there are also hotly contested aldermanic races. We have 16 aldermen retiring this time. So there's a lot of open seats. There's a lot of excitement in the different wards of the aldermanic candidates. So I think that's driving a lot of it.
Okay.
And I think, and just by the way, I'm going to go vote today because I'm going to be downtown. So thank you, Kevin Lampy, for reminding me that I can go vote anywhere I want.
That's right.
But, you're having Mr. Vallis on later, and I think there are, fundamental questions to ask him. He was the head of the public schools, but yet he seems like now he wants to destroy the public schools. I don't understand when if he's so concerned about crime, he more than anyone should understand that preparing people to get good jobs by getting them a good education is the most important first step in making our city prosper.
Are you speaking of his track record in Philadelphia?
That and the fact that he said he's going to support charter schools. Charter schools take money away from public schools. They take talent away from public schools. My parents went to Chicago public schools starting back in the 1930s and got amazing educations because we were investing in our public schools back then. And if we want to have a prosperous, healthy, happy, safe society, we need to invest in our students and in our public schools.
Well, what about his relationship with the police? Because qualified immunity is really surged as an issue. And, and then now something that's really becoming, that's circulating certainly in Black social media, is the fact that his son was part of a 3-person police team in Texas where a young Black man was fatally shot. Now, he was not the shooter, and that was proved. But it's something that people are talking about. What do you make of that?
I think it's more than just that personal relationship. He's got to talk about, we've got to talk about holding police accountable. I think that, not to name check Jamal Green again, but I'm going to, he said at the Rainbow Push Mayoral Forum, he said, we the taxpayers shouldn't be held accountable when a cop exhibits bad behavior. The cops should be held accountable. And I know in Philadelphia, they're requiring policemen to have sort of a malpractice insurance like a lawyer would. And I think that we've got to look at how much money Chicago has paid out in settlements because of that bad behavior by a few bad cops. And we can't let that bankrupt our city. We've got to look at other ways, and I don't think Mr. Vallis even addressed that.
Well, Kevin Lampy, I mean, police reform, public schools, and of course, I'll bring in Dwight McKee shortly. But what are the other issues that you think that he should address? I mean, and of course, as a front runner, you take on the incoming fire. But he's someone who's been prominent in our public life and in our politics for decades now.
I think it's economic development. I think it's investment in communities that have been underinvested over the years. I think there is an opportunity for anybody running for mayor to lay out some positive things about what they can do to encourage small business. I want to talking about the small business and relationship with City Hall. What is it like to go through the permitting process? Mm-hmm. What is it like to go through the inspection process? What is it like to be able to have a business on a day-to-day basis in the city that we can do to support those businesses? As is always the truth, the smaller the business, the greater opportunity there exists for more jobs. And if we can be developing businesses in our neighborhoods that create stability, that create sustainability, these are the things that we need to be looking for. And we need a mayor that is going to bring investment and is going to bring housing, affordable housing, and be able to get our city back on the right track.
Do you think these are fair questions for all the candidates?
Absolutely. We need to be talking about everything. We have the whole issue of public safety is incredibly important, but there becomes a time in an election where it just turns into an echo chamber, where the media says crime is the only issue, and then the voters start saying when they get home, crime is the only issue, and then we start to realize, well, wait, there's other things that need to be talked about. We need to talk more about what is the root cause of crime, what is the root cause of being unsecure, what is causing carjackings, what are these systemic problems that are creating some of these effects of crime, and we need to be focused on correcting the situation and providing opportunities for people that will help us to reduce crime in our city.
Dwight McKee, your thoughts? I mean, because I'm going to have Mr. Vallis on shortly, but as I've been talking to these other candidates, Alderman Sawyer, Jamal Green, State Representative Cam Buckner. I'll be speaking with Willie Wilson tomorrow, and Sophia King, and I'm reaching out to Chuy Garcia, the mayor, and I think I just have 3 more to go. Brandon Johnson. I mean, what do you think should be on the table with Mr. Vallis in particular, and just the candidates in general?
Well, my question to him would be, since he's been such a law and order advocate, what is it about him that is so appealing to the Chicago police union? It's why they find him more attractive than any other candidate, and they're so inclined to give him support and give him money. And what kind of commitments has he made to them? And what reciprocity does he expect for them? Given their avid support of him against any other candidate, I'd be curious to know how that flushes out. Because my suspicion is that many of the people who, even those who are looking for more police protection and more options in terms of security on the subways and in their communities, may be a little intimidated by his approach than to some of the other mayoral candidates' approach, who also have that concern, but it is not as severe of a strategy and is not as willing to concede so much territory and latitude to the Chicago Police Department. That would be one of the questions I ask him. And then I'd ask him, like Kenny them said a minute ago, what beyond police security is your strategy for reinvestment in the development of the different communities in Chicago? Do you have a strategy beyond, stop and frisk to really secure a different environment in the city? And you just don't seem to have outlined that. Include your position on education, which seems to be mildly inconsistent with your position when you were superintendent of schools. Now you seem to be the superintendent of charter schools. So I would want to flesh that out with you.
So look, I've got about literally 2 minutes before I have to go. 1 minute for you, Kitty Kurth, and 1 minute for you, Kevin Lampy. 1 minute, Kitty Kurth.
Well, once again, Dwight McKee brought it home. He's got to tell us what his real plan for the city is. He's got to tell us why he's running and why we should vote for him. And I think Mr. McKee is right on target. What's the quid pro quo that he's reached with the police that they're supporting him so strongly?
Kevin Lampy?
Currently in the Chicago Police Department, we're feeling the effects of the corruption of Sergeant Ronald Watts. He led a crew of police officers that were basically shaking down people in the city and falsely accusing them, and then false convictions of people that destroyed their lives. Hundreds of these people were victims of Sergeant Watts and his crew. But the problem is, many members of that crew are still working death duty. And this is because of the way that the structure is in order to relieve a police officer of his duties. And even when police officers speak out, there's such retaliation against them. His cozy relationship with FOP is problematic because they're fighting to keep the officers on the job, but even the state's attorney won't let them testify in court. We need to change the culture within the Chicago Police Department, and what can you do to stand up to fix that culture so that we have officers on the streets that we know and can trust?
Well, I mean, indeed, that will make us safe. When people do not feel secure, that decreases safety. Dwight McKee, 1 minute for you before we go.
Yes, I think that they hit all the key points. I think that there's some questions that are almost pertinent only to him, because he seems to have a lot on those communities, on the traditional Democratic, anti-everybody but white, so everybody but Irish, everybody but Polish. He seems to have a lot on those daily constituencies that was about themselves to be the real only natural constituencies in the city, and so they had carte blanche to run the city to the disadvantage of anybody else who was in the city. And so if he's going to go in that direction, it's going to be the same old Bridgeport politics that we spent so hard fighting against.
Absolutely. Absolutely, in 2023. And that's not going to work, I don't think. Back with Paul Vallis, former CEO of the Chicago Public Schools, leading candidate for mayor, right here on the Santita Jackson Show on WCPT 820 and AM 950 Radio. Back in a moment. Thank you all so much. Thank you. Wow.
You're welcome, Santita. We'll be listening in our interview. Have a great one, and thanks for letting us participate this morning.
And texting, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Mr. Vallis? Oh, Mr. Vallis?
He's there.
Okay.
He's there.
Okay, he might be busy. Mr. Vallis?
Yes, I am.
Oh, okay. It's wonderful hearing your voice today. We want to make sure that the volume is up so that everyone can hear you.
How's my reception?
Are you on earbuds, Mr. Vallis?
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay. Because it just doesn't sound quite as clear.
Mr. Vallis, are you on speaker by any chance?
No, let me get off.
Okay.
Let's try that. Hold on 1 second.
Sure.
Okay. You know what to do? Let me call back this number and let's see if we can get off speaker. Hold on.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay. He dropped.
Okay, no worries. Ooh, this will be a tough one. Oh, of course, I have my Hochberg read. Okay, I'll do that. That'll be quick. Go right into these things. Okay. Okay, it is. Okay. Okay. Let me know when we have him back. Of course you will.
He's back.
Okay. Mr. Vallis?
Yes, Paul. Call me Paul.
Oh, that's so hard for me to do. And
He sounds a lot better.
yes, you're so gracious, but I feel my mother on my neck and my father on my neck. And they send their best regards to you, by the way.
Thank you. Oh, good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm so glad that you're with us today. Thank you so much for being with us.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
And cannot wait to have you back once again. Looking forward to that. Looking forward to that. So you must be heartened by what you're seeing in the polling.
Yeah, yeah, I am. It's always hard when the cheap shots are coming,
Mm-hmm.
or when my record is started. You know what I mean? But I've got to stay disciplined and on message, and and so.
Well, and that's why I'm going to ask certain questions of you, so it gives you an opportunity to straighten things out. You know that I have grown up in public life, and so I know what it's like to be misunderstood, to be misquoted, to have things distorted, all of that. And so, I will be fair. I want you to, because I want you to be able to make your case. Okay?
Yeah, I get nothing. I go over and I'm embedding my comment and respond to whatever question is put out there. So,
Okay, hold on. We haven't started the interview, but I'm trying, but it still doesn't sound as clear, board operator. It doesn't sound as clear as I want him to sound.
Is it clear enough?
It's a little better. I mean,
maybe try turning up your phone volume. Make sure it's on max volume.
yes.
Paul? How's it now? Clear now?
That sounds a little better.
It just doesn't sound clear. Yeah.
Yeah.
No earbuds. You're off speaker. Phone volume's up.
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Oh,
I can hear you.
We can hear you. I just want it to be a clear transmission. Yeah.
That seems a little bit clear to me. I think when he turned the phone volume up. What do you think, Ms. Jackson?
It is clearer. But you know what I'm going to do? Let's go to the tie line for this. No.
Is it clearer now?
It's much. Oh, wow. Mr. Vallis is much clearer. Paul Vallis.
I think we're good now.
Okay, we're good. I want you to be heard clearly. That's all. Okay?
Okay.
So I'm going to abbreviate my headline so that we can get to you. Okay? So you can say as much as you need to say.
No, that's fine. That's fine. I'm at your disposal. I actually clear my schedule, so as long as you need me.
Okay, you were very, very, very kind. And thank you for making the space for us today.
My pleasure.
Okay, so wait a minute. Let me put my glasses. Oh, okay. You said he's not clear at all. Stanley, let me know if you can hear Mr. Vallis now. Mr. Vallis, if you can say hello.
Yes, hello, Sammy. Was it Sammy?
Yes,
hello?
He's on Facebook Live. And I think it should be better. So Stanley, if you
sounds
can respond.
pretty good and clear in the studio.
Okay.
Also, so I'm good on my end. We have about 1 minute till we go live.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm talking to my. I don't have to speak. I don't have to speak loud. I'm talking directly into the phone.
Okay. No, you're fine. You're fine. You're much better. It just, we could hear you. It just didn't sound clear. And I want it to sound as crisp and clear as we can get it. Okay. All right. Oh, I'm sorry. I keep things a little chilly over here with the equipment, and my nose is running, and this is so unattractive. Oh God. Oh.
Are you working from home, or are you calling it in, or are you in studio?
I'm working from home, but just because I have so much experience with studios, even though they say you can keep it at a normal temperature, Mr. Vallis, I like it's 80 degrees is my norm. 80. I'm serious.
All right, stand by, everyone.
I kill the equipment, and I'm not going to do that. So stand by.
You wouldn't like it here. It's cold in here.
Oh,
for
no,
the equipment.
Honey, then I leave. Well, I gotta go.
You just gotta bring a blanket. That's all.
Can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Tuesday, February 21st, 2023. It's election season here in Chicago. We've been able to vote since January 26th, but now you can vote in all 50 wards. There is no reason not to vote for mayor. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. And of course, you can meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. They're joining us from all over the country: Los Angeles, New York, etc., Texas. Everybody's from everywhere. Memphis, I haven't forgotten about you, Ashley. And of course, here in Chicago and Minneapolis, St. Paul. And we're honored to have Paul Vallis. He's the leading candidate. He's leading in all of the polls here in the Chicago mayor's race. We want to talk with him about law and order, public schools, and so many things for which he is noted. He has been in public life for 4 decades, at the very least, serving and working. And now he is the leading candidate in a 9-person field. We want to hear from him, but we're so honored that he cleared his schedule to be with us today on the Santita Jackson Show on Tuesday, February 21st, 2023, everybody. 773-763-9278 is my number. Want to hear from you, but let's get to some of these headlines in Chicago. 35 degrees will be the high. It is cloudy and windy. I can hear it right now. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 19 degrees. And so you're supposed to have Snowmageddon up there today. Please be careful. All of my brothers and sisters up at AM950radio.com. And of course, in the NHL, the Golden Knights will be facing off against Chicago, and the Kings will be facing off against the Wild. And so what is going on? President Biden is still in Europe. Of course, he was in Ukraine yesterday, shocking everybody. Thankfully, it was a good trip. He's going to be speaking in Poland. In fact, he should have spoken there already. He met with President Zelensky yesterday, reiterating America's support for Ukraine, giving hundreds of millions of more dollars, American dollars, to that fight. A major winter storm is set to impact millions across the United States this week with heavy snow, dangerous winds, possible blizzard conditions. Do you hear me, Minneapolis, St. Paul? And for some, the coldest temperatures of the season. Please be careful, everybody. A magnitude 6.3 aftershock struck southern Turkey on Monday, killing 3 people, injuring hundreds of others, adding to a death toll between Turkey and Syria that is now past 46,000 people. God bless them all. And the EPA Administrator, Michael Regan, the nation's top environmental official, will visit East Palestine, Ohio today amid mounting reports of rashes, headaches, nausea, even melting skin. Never heard of that. And other symptoms that residents fear could be related to the February 3rd derailment of the car carrying the toxic chemicals, which have now gone into the ground. So those are just some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. Everybody, you know, we are looking at financial freedom here. And we want you to know that Team Hochberg is your trusted local lender. You should reach out to them. If you're selling your home, if you're purchasing a new home and would like to save thousands of dollars, you need to call Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender. Team Hochberg is offering everyone something called their Perks at Work benefit through the end of April, which can save you thousands of dollars. It can make you thousands of dollars when you buy your next home or sell the home that you're in. This is how it works. When a Team Hochberg affiliated realtor sells your home, they'll reduce their fee up to 1%. That's thousands of dollars, everybody. When a Team Hochberg affiliated realtor helps you to purchase a home, you will receive up to 1% of their commission as a closing cost credit. Again, thousands of dollars. Team Hochberg will credit their loan origination fee, and their affiliated attorney will reduce his fee. Thousands of dollars, everybody. His or her fee, excuse me. A couple saved close to $9,000 being involved in this program, and that could be you. They sold their home, they purchased a new home. Working with Team Hochberg, they were able to save, really. If you save it, you're making it. $9,000. That could be you. So go to Team Hochberg. Call them at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID. Tell them all about it. They can help you. Go to 56david.com so you can read more extensively about the Perks at Work program of Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender. Everybody, I'm so honored to have this gentleman with us. He's someone who's been with us for a long time. Indeed, he was a former CEO. He was the CEO of the Chicago Public Schools, of which I am a proud graduate. That's right, John J. Pershing School and Whitney Young Magnet High School. All the Jacksons went to public school. We love public schools and absolutely support them. And so we're excited to have him. And as we are watching the voter turnout surge, Mr. Vallis, all across Chicago, this time 4 years ago, not even 3,000 people had voted. Now more than 40,000 people have voted. Kitty Kurth just told us in the previous segment, we've got some key aldermanic races that could be driving the vote. I'm sure that's part of it. But there's also a very engaged electorate around these 9 candidates who are bringing so much excitement to us. And one of the person who's at the top of the heap at this time, according to all the polls, is Paul Vallis, the former CEO of the Chicago Public Schools. Saw you at Apostolic Church of God just the other week. You were warmly received at one of the leading Black churches in Chicago and indeed in the nation. It's so wonderful to have you here with us today, Mr. Vallis.
Thanks so much. And I have to tell you, the forum was excellent. The pacing of the forum, the allowing us the ability to respond when criticized, it was a very, very satisfying affair.
Well, it's, of course, being at the top of the heap, now, you know how it works. You got to take the incoming fire. It's tough. But look, you headed up the Chicago public school system, so I think you're ready. And you've headed up other public school systems. Let me just get right to it, because a lot of people are very concerned. And I want to give you the opportunity to respond to, really, you've been very supportive of charter schools. And that is something that, for those people who are in regular neighborhood public schools and even the selective public schools, it's a little unsettling, more than a little unsettling, because it is, charter schools money come from the public schools, and you have gone to Philadelphia, you've privatized some public school systems. Schools in the public school systems. What about your support for public schools, as you also support charter schools? Help me to find the balance here. Help me to understand how that is going to work if you become mayor.
Well, first of all, let me point out that I haven't privatized schools. In Philadelphia, we opened 14 charter schools. Most of them were alternative schools. Let's understand that charter schools are public schools. They're public not-for-profit schools. They're just not mandated to basically hire the union teachers. Now, the unions are authorized and empowered to organize teachers in charter schools. They're just not subject to the union contract. So whether the charter schools are in Chicago or whether they're in Philadelphia or New Orleans, where I rebuilt an entire school system after Katrina, those are public not-for-profit schools. And the unions, in fact, unionized many of those schools. So I just want to clear that up.
Well, no, let me give you this, because this is the rub with charter schools. Many people, including Charles Ogletree, the famed Harvard law school professor, you know, according to his research, that charter schools were really put in place behind the Brown v. Board of Education decision to upend the promise of the Brown v. Board of Education decision, which was to desegregate America's public schools. And charter schools do not produce the artists and the athletically gifted the way regular public schools do. And so there is, it's not an everybody in, nobody out formula. More of us are expelled from these charter schools than we are from the regular public schools. So what about your support for the regular public schools? People want choices, but people also need to make sure that their neighborhood public school gets the support that it needs, Mr. Vallis.
Yeah, well, let me point out once again that charter schools actually nationally are outperforming traditional public schools. And they're certainly outperforming the traditional public schools in Chicago. Let me point out that the most recent data shows that, for example, Black children are computing at 6% of the national average, and Hispanic children at 12% of the national average. And in reading, Black children are at 11%, and Hispanic children are 17%. So the bottom line is clearly the traditional public schools are certainly not delivering, and many charter schools are struggling too. But let me again say, and this is what I've always said, is children. About 90% of the children are going to continue to be educated in traditional public schools, and I've always supported traditional public schools. And even in Chicago, we opened 15 charter schools, and we had 558 schools. Later on, Arnie Duncan, who eventually became President Obama's education secretary, did Renaissance 2010 and opened many more charter schools. So we limited the number of charter schools that we opened, and these really became schools of choice, particularly for children, low-income children, particularly overwhelmingly for Black and Latino children. 96% of the children who go to charter schools in Chicago, and these are schools that they elect to go to, are Black and Latino. And I think I pointed it out at the forum that the union has forced the district to not allow those charter schools to occupy public buildings. So you'll have public buildings that are near empty, or the 50 schools that were closed by Rahm Emanuel. And the charter schools, the public school children who attend charter schools are denied the opportunity to enroll, to use those buildings, despite the fact that they're public buildings. So, I mean, if that wasn't a civil rights violation, I don't know what is. But let me get back to your question about what I will do and what I did at the Chicago Public Schools. During my tenure and Gary Chico's tenure as my board president, we actually opened and built more traditional public schools than charter schools. We actually opened 30 traditional public schools, including building all the magnets, with the exception of Whitney Young and Lane Tech, Walter Payton, Northside College Prep, Gwendolyn Brooks, the rebuilding of Lynn Bloom, the Brownsville Military Academy, not to mention building the new Simeon High School, the new Westinghouse High School. We, in effect, built far more public schools than we ever approved charter schools. We also built 48 additions, and the reason was because our enrollment in the last 40 years, the only time the schools enrollment has grown was during the 6 years that we were running the school system. Our enrollment grew by almost 40,000, and it was because we were not only opening schools on time and keeping campuses open through the dinner hour on weekends over the summers, bringing community-based organizations into the schools so that they could offer activities and offering work studies, but we also had 2 consecutive contracts negotiated on time that gave teachers a 21% pay increase, and we were expanding quality public school choices, putting international baccalaureate programs in those schools. Bill Clinton called us a national model. Of course, Obama, when he ran for president, talked about his successes when he was heading the Public Education Fund for the Chicago Public Schools. And of course, Arnie Duncan, who had run the schools, became its education secretary. So I'll compare my record to anyone, the record of academic improvement. The school we built, up to 78 schools we built, and the 350 we renovated. 55% of all of our contracts were awarded to Black and Latino companies, and 50% of those hired to do the construction were Black and Latino. Doris Davenport from Push actually was very instrumental in our designing our MBEWP program.
Oh, sure.
Reverend Jackson knows that well because we had so many vendor fairs and job fairs that were co-sponsored with the district. So that's my record. Some people want to blame me for things that they disagreed with Arnie Duncan, or maybe they want to blame me for things that they disagreed with Ron Emanuel.
Sure.
But by the time those guys are in the schools, I'm in New Orleans.
Well, but this is, for me, this is not about blaming. This is about really, and shaming. This is about getting the record clear. And as someone who's gone to public schools, as, from someone, I mean, my parents have 5 kids. We've all gone to public schools. And my brothers and my sisters spent very relatively little time in private schools. And they went away because our parents essentially moved to Washington when Reverend Jackson ran for president. That having been said, there is a pledge and I went K through 12 and was a merit scholar. And so I really believe in public education. And I know that when the intentionality is there, when it's there, we can have great neighborhood schools. So I went to a neighborhood school, and then I went to Whitney Young, which was the first school of its kind in Chicago. Just ultimately, before I get to any other questions that I have for you, is there a pledge that you can give us, or some guarantee, a plan to really shore up our public schools and put the kind of resources in our neighborhood public schools that we have in the Paytons and the Whitney Youngs and the Northside Preps and the Lindblooms and on and on and on. Because, we have a lot of children who have a lot of different gifts, but they're not well served because the intentionality of serving these kids is just not there, Mr. Vallis.
Well, do I have time to give it a long answer? Do you want me to wait for break?
Well, you know what? I plan to bring you to the bottom of the hour, but you know what? This is such an engaging conversation, and people are so engaged with you.
Right.
No. I'm gonna keep you, if you don't mind. I will do that. I'll keep you. No, not yet. No, I don't have a break yet. I have it at 29. But stand by. Okay, your response.
Yeah, so let me respond, and this is something I've articulated, I put out as part of my education plan. I mean, my approach will be what I did in the 90s, when the public schools dramatically improved, and where we were, in fact, putting magnet programs in dozens and dozens of high schools and feeder schools. I basically said, we're going to do 5 things. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to radically decentralize statistics so we can push the money down to the local school level. Because right now, only about 60% of the $30,000 per child that the schools spend actually find its way into the neighborhood schools. At the end of the day, the central office bureaucracy, the privatized Aramark and Sodexo, the centrally managed programs, they stifle. They cut off so much of the money, and we need to push the money down to the local schools and let the principals and the local school councils decide. That will allow all the schools to have considerably more resources, to have more staff, to have more programs if they like to do so. Secondly, we're going to open the school campuses to the community. We're going to restore the concept of community schools, inviting park district programs, faith-based programs, community-based programs to be brought to the local school campuses. There are so many community-based programs that are just looking to use the schools to access the site. And, why is Gwendolyn Brooks, a school I built on the south side, just as I built the other magnets with the exception of Whitney Young, why aren't those schools open to the dinner hour on weekends, over the holidays? I mean, we built 125 campus parks. Why are those campus parks closed in the evening? So if we can restore our schools as community schools, open to the community, and offering an array of services, then obviously that will make the schools more attractive and beneficial. The third thing I'm going to do is something that I did under Craig Williams, if you recall, who's my director of high school programs, and we're going to restore work-study programs. That means we're going to get every city agency, department, contractors, unions who have contracts with the city, companies that are provided with incentives by the city. We're going to have them offer work-study jobs and paid work-study internships so we can connect children to the vocations. We can connect them to the trades. We can have them participate in paid internships with the first responders, the police and the fire. These are things that we did for tens of thousands of children in the 90s, which is why our dropout rate was significantly reduced. And then the fourth thing that we're going to do is we're going to expand the alternative schools network. Most of the charters that I have opened, both in Chicago and in Philadelphia, were alternative schools for students who have dropped out, who have been incarcerated and been released. If you recall, in Chicago, the Youth Connection Charter School, with its community campuses, was the largest charter that we opened. The same thing in Philadelphia, because we have tens of thousands of former students, 18 to 21, 22 years old, who will not be returning to high school, who have been lost to the system, who are on the street, not working, no occupational training skills, and we need to reclaim them. Youth Connection Charter Schools, which only enrolls young people who have been incarcerated or have dropped out, they graduate 1,200 a year. They graduated 22,000 students since that school network was created. So those are things that I will do. Those are things that I will do to ensure that all the schools have the resources they need. One final thing, too, is I'll work with the community to let the community and the local school councils determine whether or not they want their curriculum to be more Latino-centric or more Afrocentric, and what type of what I refer to as school-based magnet programs they want to bring to their schools. Because when we open the additional magnet schools like Northside College Prep, Walter Payton, and Brown Brooks, we also put international baccalaureate programs in Morgan Park and in Prosser and in Steuben and in Taft and Edmonton, and I actually put IB programs in Austin and in Collins, which of course, during the Duncan years, they disinvested in, and I'm never quite too sure why.
Well,
but
then,
the bottom line here is those are the policies that are going to restore the public schools and ensure that the public schools are offering quality educational choices.
So you would also, because you would open up these vocational education and expand it once more, you'd be working with, that would also mean that you'd be working with the unions, which have traditionally locked Black and Latino, but particularly Black people out. How will you, I mean, yes, so, I mean, you will have to take them on, Mr. Vallis. I'm going to keep you with us. I've not done this with any other candidate, but you are leading and you have got people engaged. I want everyone to call in. Mama D is called in, and I want all of you to call in. He said that he would take calls, and so he's a man of his word. Call us at 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. Let's talk with Paul Vallis. He could become the mayor. There are other people who could become mayor, but he is at the top of the polls, and he's been engaged with us now for decades. And so let's clear the record. Let's clear the air. Let's find out what he plans to do for you. Got to talk about the police when we come back on the Santita Jackson Show. So glad that he's with us today. So glad that you are too. But I want you to call in. Call in, Chaparral. Call in, Stanley. Call in 773-763-9278. Ask him your questions. You have this opportunity to do it right now on the Santita Jackson Show. Back in just a moment. Okay, I've got people calling in. You know what, Jewel? Oh, hold on one moment, because actually I have another segment. I need to, Jewel, if you could call John Nichols and tell him I'm gonna have to reschedule him, Jewel. Okay. Okay. I'm sorry.
I'll be on as long as you want. I'll be on as long as you want me. I've scored my schedule till 9. You don't want me on that long, obviously.
Well, I know I do Facebook Live. I want you to be able to speak to the people. I really do, because a lot of people have a lot of things that they have to say, and people I have kept people on for 30 minutes. But I also, as a radio host, I have to go with what my audience are demanding, and they want to speak with you. And so so I'm trying to talk to you, look at the Facebook and YouTube feed. So I'm, giving you these questions because they are coming from the people, okay?
Any questions from my way?
Oh, of course. And thank you for being so open and so engaged.
My pleasure. Santita, you might want to circle back because you talk about the trades and not letting black workers in. You might want to ask me that question again because we did something that was unique. And which is the reason we have.
Oh, hold on 1 second. Okay, no. Because the radio came up, but no, please, but go on. Because now we're on, just so that you know, we're on Facebook Live, so my audience can hear you, not the radio audience, but this audience can hear you. And so, but why don't you speak to them about your relationship with these unions and the trades, because that's a real issue for our young people.
Yeah, absolutely. And it actually works very closely with Porsche. Doris Davenport played a big role in this. We work with Black Contractors United and other groups. And when we did our massive school construction program, $3.2 billion, which built 30 new schools and 48 additions, renovated 350 schools, we did 50%, we set goals of over 50% minority contracts. We wanted over 50% of the workers to be minority. And we exceeded those goals. 55% of the contracts were awarded to minority businesses, and we didn't double count the businesses. So if you were a black woman, we counted you in the women's category. So we weren't double counting. And the same thing with the hiring. And what we did, because so many of the Black and Latino companies, not have union workers, is we signed project labor agreements with the unions, which basically allow them to use their own workers as long as we ensure that we pay prevailing wage and benefits. And so we were literally 58% of the work that was done by minority workers, $1.78 billion. We also did the same type of targets or close to those targets on the professional service side, legal fees, finding fees, whatever, 40% hit those numbers. And what we did for new companies like black companies was we removed the obstacles to them getting contracts by insuring them. We took all the insurance away from the big insurance providers who would often,
Ms. Jackson, we have about 20 seconds left.
Okay.
Our lines are full with callers for Mr. Ballas.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Ballas, we're trying to juggle a lot of balls here. This is what we're going to do.
We're ready to go.
If you could speak to that very quickly, and then I need to ask you another question, and then I'm going to release you to the callers. Stand by. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. Typically I keep the mayoral candidates 30 minutes, but you are so engaged and you are so you have so many questions of Paul Vallas, as you would have of someone who's been in public life this long, who's been in public service this long. So we're going to keep him. He said he opened up his schedule for a couple of hours for us. So however long you call in and want to ask these questions, Mr. Vallas and I will be here. You have that pledge. He wanted to respond, though, to my query about the trades, because, that is something that young Black and brown entrepreneurs, when they're trying to get city contracts, the permit process, the application process is just absolutely onerous. I mean, it's discouraging, and it really locks people out. And by diminishing vocational education in Chicago, in the public school system here, not just around the country, but specifically here, we have locked out a lot of people who are vocationally gifted, and they can't get in the trades. But we have Eastern Europeans who are trained in their home countries. They come here and they're able to go right into the trades because they have the training. But you have all of these people here who just don't have access, and they also do not get into these unions. So my question for you, I need you to speak to that, and then I have another question, and then I've got to release you to the callers because they want to speak with you, Mr. Vallis. But what about vocational education? What about the unions? How are we going to open this up and get these jobs to Black and brown people?
Great. So let me tell you what we did with our capital plan, because this is a model for what we can do now, what the city can do now with its $28 billion in spending. We took all the school construction projects out of the Public Building Commission that has always awarded its contracts based on politics, and we managed the school construction program separately. It came to $3.2 billion. 78 buildings. The majority of those buildings were built on the south and west sides. We also replaced all the prefab schools like the Priest with brick and mortar schools. We built in Simeon, Glenn Brooks. Anyway, long story short, we set goals: 50% minority contracting, 50% minority hiring, and we exceeded those goals. 55% of all the contracts went to minority, and women-owned businesses, 58% of all the hiring was minorities. And let me tell you, first of all, how we got that much work into the hands of minority businesses. We removed the obstacles for them getting bonding and for them getting the permitting, because we insured them. We provided them with the bonding. They didn't have to go to Near North Insurance. They didn't have to go to some of the big bonding entities that they had struggled to get bonding from in the past. And we bonded them whether they had that past experience or not. So we were able to bond and insure all those companies, which meant they could then bid on work. We then also did something else. We entered into a project labor agreement with the unions, and we basically permitted Black companies to hire their own workers, whether they were union or not. The only condition was that we pay prevailing wage, and of course the contracts that we gave to our contractors gave them enough money to pay prevailing wage and to provide benefits. And it was the first project labor agreement ever negotiated in the city history. You can ask Dennis Gannon, who at the time was president of the labor coalition. So we were able to do that on a massive scale. We also did target marketing only to Black companies, and we also did, which we're permitted to do by law. And obviously, we also set 40% minority hiring goals when it came to bond business, when it came to professional services. So that is something that can be done. That can be something that can be done on a massive scale. No one has come close to doing that anywhere in the country. Black Contractors United, I think it was Joe Williams, did this extensive study of the program and the successes of that program. And when it comes to the unions, look, our approach was to basically tell unions that we had negotiated with or had contracts with, that they, in effect, had to take our students and had to not only, first of all, allow Black companies and Latino companies to hire their workers whether they're union or not, as long as we paid them prevailing wage, but also to take our students and to put them in their training programs, and we, in effect, subsidize that. So we were able to enroll our students directly in their training programs, $150, $399. So many of these unions have their own training programs.
Okay.
So that's something that has worked in the past with great success. That's going to work in the future.
So this is a pathway into the unions, because of course being part of the union gives you certain benefits, pension, health care, and all of that, because ultimately, okay, well, let me move on, because I've got my lines are full. People want to speak with you, but I want to ask you about your relationship with Well, first of all, you're running, and many people now see you as the law and order candidate. You're going to make Chicago safe. And yet, when you go to the Black and brown communities, and absolutely, I mean, and it has a particular resonance in the Black communities. When we hear law and order, it is unsettling to us because law and order has always meant that we get hurt, at the very least. And so I want to know about why is it that the FOP's endorsement of you is so robust? What have you offered the FOP that other candidates have not? Is it a sense of comfort? Is it programming? Is it protection? Please talk to us about that.
Yeah, well, first of all, not only am I endorsed by the FOP, I'm endorsed by the Sergeants Association too. And I think it's because I was able to come in and finally get that contract that had long evaded past marriage done. As you know, the police had not had a contract in 5 years. And police officers have been leaving at the pace of 1,000 a year. And they were 2,500 additional police officers that were prepared to leave, that were prepared to resign. And they're already 1,700 officers down. And the police are so short. Last year, there were 400,000 high priority 911 calls that came in for which there was not a car available, including 32,000 assaults in progress. So I was able to not only negotiate an 8-year contract with the city, and Santita, I did it for free. I refused to take any money. They donated the money to a children's charity. But I was not only able to do the work for free, not only get them an 8-year contract, but that contract included all the accountability provisions that the advocates, the police reform advocates were demanding. The sergeants had agreed to accountability provisions that were approved by the city council, and those same accountability provisions were extended to the police contract. So, I have the support of the rank and file police officers. Union leadership only endorsed candidates that are endorsed by the rank and file. So,
well, let's get past.
I have the rank and file support of police officers.
Well, not to interrupt you, but my back is against the wall all the time. But just beyond even the rank and file, what about qualified immunity? Because the rank and file don't support that. But that's something that increasingly, the majority of the community, they want qualified immunity. Do you support it? If so, why do you support it? If not, why not?
Well, do I have enough time to explain what qualified immunity is? Because it's important that you understand.
Very quickly.
Qualified immunity. What qualified immunity basically says is that if somebody is injured despite the fact that you have really done nothing wrong and it has not been intentional, etc., that officer or any public official can be accepted, can be protected. Police officers can't be sued personally, but judges have to make that determination. So anybody who intentionally violates the law or does not follow rules can in fact be sued permanently. But qualified immunity is designed to basically say, if you're acting in good faith, if you're following the rules, if you're acting right, if you're acting with no intent to harm, and there is in effect harm, you can be protected.
But that's,
for example,
but Mr. Vallis, that part of that application of qualified immunity, no one disagrees with. We're talking about when police officers hurt, harm, and kill citizens. Not Tyree Nichols, that's Memphis. But here in Chicago, that's what we're talking about. In the Black community, I know we call the police more than anybody else, but we also get killed and harmed more than anybody else. We want to know, given the fact that the city has paid hundreds of millions of dollars in compensation on behalf of police who have been guilty, because we now have the man who killed Laquan McDonald. He is coming out. I mean, this is a kid who was killed, and there's so many who've been killed, who've been harmed. That's not the application of qualified immunity that we're talking about. We're talking about people who broke the law and who stood under the cover of blue, and they harm other police officers because other police officers then, Mr. Vallis, are not trusted.
And Santita, what I'm saying is you can sue. When somebody intentionally harms someone, you can sue them personally. The reason they don't sue them personally is because the city has deeper pockets. So if you wanted to sue someone who deliberately and intentionally hurt someone, You can't do that. Qualified immunity only protects someone when they have acted in good faith, when they have acted with no intent to harm, and there are consequences. For example, if you eliminated qualified immunity, if someone got arrested, if the police arrested somebody for committing what they thought was a crime, and that person was arrested but then not charged by the state's attorney, that person could go around and sue the police officer for arresting them personally because they were eliminated from qualified immunity. If you got rid of qualified immunity, for example, say you got rid of qualified immunity for the state's attorney, that means that the state's attorney did not charge someone for a crime or put somebody out on felony bail, and that person went out and shot somebody. That family, the victim's family, could then sue the state's attorney.
Well, do you think?
Understand what we're talking about.
Well, do you think behavior would change if police were on the hook for some of these fees? Because now they still don't feel it. John Burge was able to go to Florida and chill after all of the things that he did that were so out of order. I do want to get to the callers, but I do want you to be able to respond to that, Mr. Vallis.
Yeah. Well, my response is officers can't be sued personally. The people sue the city because the city's deeper pockets. So there's nothing that protects someone who has deliberately broken the law from getting sued and getting sued personally. In fact, getting sued civilly. So at the end of the day, qualified immunity is only intended to protect somebody who has done no wrong intentionally, has intentionally done nothing wrong. They're acting in good faith. That's what qualified. That's why it's called qualified immunity. It's not blanket immunity. Mm-hmm. It's qualified immunity. Look, I have a zero tolerance policy for police misconduct. I've always had a zero tolerance policy. And if you remember 4 years ago, I was very outspoken on the issue, on the Laquan McDonald issue. I was very outspoken. I was very critical of the police department. I was highly critical. And I've been consistent, but qualified immunity is just that. It's qualified immunity. Complete immunity.
But beyond qualified immunity, people are now calling for some personal accountability from the police. That is to say, do you think that behavior would change? Just very quickly, because I do want you to be able to speak to your potential voters.
Yes.
Do you think behavior would change if pensions and if some kind of personal penalty were tied to behavior? There's a woman who was sitting in her apartment, minding her own business, and the police broke down her door. She wasn't dressed. Oh my goodness. And no one even thought to let her put her clothes on. I mean, Mr. Vallis, somebody's got to, I can't as a taxpayer just dig in my pockets and pay for people who do things that they know are wrong. Think that they would not allow to have happen to their wives, to their husbands, their partners, their children.
Well, Santita, my support for the police getting a raise, my support for a contract that included all the accountability provisions that were in the sergeant's contract, the provisions that were designed, that were called for by the advocates, getting that into the contract with very little debate when they have been trying to get a contract consummated for years. I think that reflects my recognition that police need to be compensated, police need to have a contract, and police need to have financial stability, but also that there needs to be accountability. All the accountability provisions that were being demanded were included in that contract, and they were included in that contract because I basically said when I got involved in the negotiations by invitation, and I think the city's negotiating team, headed by Jim Francisco, negotiated all my contracts when I worked in the city as budget director at schools. They were glad to see me on board. I think what I was able to achieve was to get that contract done and to get the accountability provisions that you're referring to incorporated into that contract. And I was successful at doing that while others had failed.
Well, I think that there needs to be a contract, not beyond the social contract between the police and the people, because even with that, the distrust and mistrust is there, and that means that they cannot do their jobs. I don't feel protected, and it's a problem. And it's something that if you become mayor, you're going to have to wrestle with it. But let me go to Mama D. Mama D, you've been holding. Mama D, very quickly, because I'm up against the clock, but I want you to make your question, give him your question or comment in about a minute.
Greetings. Mr. Vallis, you've run for mayor before, and and you were once the superintendent of schools. You are familiar with the 1980 consent decree that the city entered into, and they have fought against it for 23 years before it was dismissed. Presently, the police is under a consent decree. They are less than 70% in compliance. They've been given more money and a 3-year extension. Would you address that? And officers under January 7th serving as police. Yeah, I didn't hear the last thing you said. Let me talk to the consent decree. I totally support the consent decree, and my public safety plan, which really focuses on, professionalizing the police leadership, getting the right supervision in place. Because right now you can't have 30 officers supervised by one sergeant and sometimes no sergeant. You need to. The consent decree talks about the supervisory ratio, so officers should be monitored, but the continuous training, the redundant training, the need to make sure that you have beat officers who are familiar with the community and who know the community. I mean, the provisions of the consent decree are sound, and those are provisions that I would enforce. Now, the mayor's claiming that she has implemented 80% of the consent decree. I think most of the candidates running point out that that's not the case. But I support the consent decree, and nothing in that contract is inconsistent with the consent decree. In fact, the accountability provisions in that contract are very consistent and aligned with the consent decree. So I support the full implementation of the consent decree. I always have.
Okay, Al from Rosemont. No, Mama D. I gave you. Thank you. Got it. Okay, Al from Rosemont. Al, you there? Then let me go to Gregory from Rogers Park. Gregory?
We have Al. This is Al.
Okay, Al. Okay, Al, what's on your mind, hon?
I just want to say, we love you, Santita, and happy Fat Tuesday. I also want to say to Paul Ballas, I appreciate the specifics on school and community. And I appreciate the specifics on all the other topics. My only question is there any plan to address like the narcotics inside of the city that's fueling all of this drama? Yeah, let me tell you just two things. I lost my youngest son to long-term drug addictions. I think the reason I probably went to 80, 50 times because he was with me was because the only time he was clean, believe it or not, was when he was in Haiti, and we'd be back, and then 2 weeks later he'd disappear and he'd be on the street, and we had to go searching for him and things like that. So not only do we need to restore the mental health centers, in fact, every single police district, every area served by a police district needs to have a mental health center that with in-calls and out-calls, but we also need opioid and drug addiction centers and crisis counseling centers in each of the communities. So the police, they have networks, social service networks that they can refer to. So I believe that extraordinarily because, I will tell you this, we had all the resources that we could provide for our children. And there are so many families that lack resources. There's so many single mothers raising children. If you have a child with drug addictions, and we weren't able to save our son despite all of our resources. We can just imagine the pain and suffering for families that do not have access. So yes, I support that, and I also support the more aggressive decriminalization of individuals for narcotic offenses. We say we've done it, but have we really, really done it? So at the end of the day, drug addiction is a health problem, and we have to focus and address it as a health issue.
Let me go to Gregory. Thank you so much, Al. Gregory from Rogers Park. Very quickly, Gregory.
Good morning, Mr. Vallis. I have been dealing with trying to get the cars to yield to me as a pedestrian in a plain crosswalk, with which we have thousands to help the pedestrian make their way across our vast city on and off for 63 years. People pine for the day where the culture will shift. And when I moved to California, Nigeria and California, I saw where it can be worse and better. And in the western states, they have the culture of seeing and yielding to pedestrians. And I'm proposing expansion of the Evanston Red Flag program, where you can pick up a red flag in the container and march across the street to show the cars it's your turn, to increase visibility of people who then can put the small petite people at night or what have you.
Okay.
It's just a frustration, and we have 25 fatalities, 900 serious injuries, 3,000 strikes a year against pedestrians, and it's incumbent upon everybody to make the city more civil and law-abiding. The driving culture is out of control.
Okay.
I came back as an adult wheelchair taxi driver after 300 road violations for a day, 10,000 a month.
Oh, so okay, all right.
Yeah, can I?
Please. Yes, sir.
If your caller could leave his number, I'll be more than happy to reach out to him to try to get more information.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be great. Obviously, people want to reach me can reach me at paulvallis2023.com, paulvallis2023.com. But if the caller can leave his name and number, I'll be more than happy to give him a call just to get more information on that issue, and obviously, put it on my list. A lot of people have been telling me a lot of things like that, individual issues or concerns. So I put together a book, and then I'm going to have to go back to God willing, if I'm successful.
Well, you know what? If you could stay with me, because I still have some callers who'd like to speak with you. My show is about to end, at least on WCPT, but we're still on Facebook, we're still on YouTube. But I want to ask you this question. I've got 2 minutes left here, and certainly I'm hoping that you'll be able to stay with me beyond here. You have lost a son. You have experienced something that, my parents said is just against the natural order of things to have to bury a child. So you and your wife have experienced the most painful event that any human being could experience. How has that shaped you and your candidacy? How has that shaped you and your family? How has that shaped you, Mr. Vallis? I've got 2 minutes for you.
Yeah, I think my wife has suffered much more than I have because I've had so many things to preoccupy me. But, I think him having gone through his long-term drug addictions, it really made me appreciate even more those families who do not have the resources. I mean, my son and his friends, they used to steal from each other's homes. And, of course, we protected our children. We didn't arrest our children. But that's what they did. He would steal from his friend's house, and his friends would steal from my mother, from my wife. And it made me appreciate just what a struggle it is in poor communities that do not have access to the resources and support that we have. And that's probably the deepest impact. But I'll tell you one more thing. It's made me motivated to continue to serve because I feel that I have more to do. I feel obligated that I have more to do because God gave me this gift. And somehow, in some cases, I think I lost it. Well, even if you spend your time with your child, when you lose a child, you feel that in part you were responsible for something that you did or that you failed to do that resulted in that outcome. And I think that's probably motivated me to continue in public service.
Well, and to relate to parents, because people are struggling out here, and it's clear you have, as my father often says, there is a lot of private pain in public life. Most people just never know. And blessings to you. Just stay right here, Mr. Vallis, because I have some people who want to ask some questions of you. 773-763-9278. Stay right here. We're talking with Paul Vallis. I'm saying goodbye to WCPT and AM 950 Radio, but stay right here on the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook and on the YouTube channel, The Santita Jackson Show. Love you, everybody. God bless. Mr. Vallis, I wanted to bring on Chapearl. She has a question for you. She's someone she has lost a son. And so you all sadly have that in common. Chapearl, your question or comment for Mr. Vallis? Chapearl?
Yes, I'm here.
You have your question or comment for Mr. Vallis?
Yes, I'm sorry for your loss. Thank you so much. And I really want you to understand that police brutality in Chicago is very real, but it presents itself in a lot of different forms. And what happened to my son, Courtney Copeland, on the night of March 4th, 2016, was probably one of the most egregious things that I can imagine. My son was shot, and he went to the 25th District for help. Once he got there, the police handcuffed him while he was dying. They allowed him to bleed 13 minutes on the ground without giving him any medical attention. Then they took him to the furthest trauma center in Chicago as opposed to taking him to the nearest one. My question for you is that we have to ensure that Black and brown people are getting immediate help and attention. And what we're noticing in my investigation is that they are not. That police are not obligated to assist. They have the right to if they want to, but there's not an obligation. And so we saw this as well in Tyree, as well in that case where they were failure to assist, failure to help, failure to provide life-saving techniques to our African-American young men. Furthermore, after they found out that my son was handcuffed, the Inspector General of Chicago actually did a report. Chicago Police Department is actually still denying the handcuffing, even though it has been written, as well as also it has been testified by the nurse and staff at the hospital that my son came in handcuffed. They still deny it. We're asking that the Inspector General report be actually fully released. The current mayor has failed to release that IG report for Courtney Copeland case as well as Anjanette Young. So my question to you as mayor, do you agree that if any IG report that you actually release the full summary so that the public can know what's happening and what the City of Chicago Inspector General has found in these egregious cases?
Yeah, well, first of all, let me give you one word, absolutely. Let me point out that the Inspector General is working, the former Inspector General, Joe Ferguson, who's asked numerous reports that have been suppressed, including the Anjanette Young. And if you go back to around the time that the Anjanette Young affair occurred, I did a very lengthy Facebook post pointing out what they were covering up and what actually happened, because I was able to get information from police officers that I knew, and I pointed out the fact that there was a huge cover-up. But the Inspector General, they still haven't released that report. Joe Ferguson has actually been very helpful in my campaign in terms of providing me input, helping me on the consent decree, talking about the type of transparency that you need. So let me just tell you this. Absolutely, when the Inspector General issues a report, that report needs to be made public. That report needs to be put in the public domain. The only time you should withhold information, and sometimes you can do that just sometimes by blotting out a name, is when you're dealing with a minor or there is some sort of reason to protect a witness or something like that. But those reports, whether it's those reports or the Hill Code report that they covered up when they blew up the smokestack and that polluted the surrounding community, those reports need to be public, and they will be public, and I will ensure that report is released. The day I become mayor, I'm going to mention that to Joe right now, and so guaranteed there will be full transparency.
Well, Joe Ferguson also did the report, the IG report on my son, Courtney Copeland, and they are still suppressing that particular file as well. And like I said, they passed the law. They passed the rule. The Lightfoot got the city council to pass a provision that where the corporation council can block the Inspector General from releasing the report. So he's had numerous reports censored. I know that. He has told me that. I have a list of the reports that have been censored. That will end when I'm mayor. That will end on day one. I will have an Inspector General that has the ability to subpoena and has the ability
and has the responsibility to release reports independent of the mayor's office or the city council.
And that goes to my last point, is that when the inspector general makes a recommendation, it shouldn't be up to CPD to follow that recommendation. They should be mandated to follow those recommendations. Right now, they are responding as if they don't have to listen to what the inspector general has put in place. So what is the purpose of having an inspector general if not to hold police accountable for their actions? Because everything that they did on my son, they are not being held accountable for.
Well, I agree. And look, there were two promises made 4 years ago, and I supported Lori Lightfoot 4 years ago. So with full disclosure, I supported her. I tried to help her out. But we talked about, when we had our debates, we talked about the importance of transparency, and we also talked about the importance of having a risk management office in the law department. So when you had incidents where there was wrongdoing or people were being sued or the city failed to do something, we could analyze and evaluate what had happened and then implement rules so it never happened again. Well, what have we had? We haven't had any real transparency. Lightfoot covers up more stuff than Emmanuel Daly did. And clearly, there's been no attempt to take those lessons learned and take actions, whether they're rules or regulations or training or supervision, to take the type of actions that can prevent those mistakes from being made again. And it just doesn't apply to the police. We paid out the last decade about $350 million in lawsuits that are not police related. So it's being applied to every agency. We're not following through. There's not a follow-up, and that'll change. We want transparency, and we will analyze every case that's brought before us to ensure that we're taking the right steps so that we do not subject ourselves, so we do not engage in actions or fail to take actions that result in us getting sued again.
Thank you, Chaparral. Chaparral, now I've given you more. I've given you more time than anyone else. No. Chaparral.
If you want to leave me, if you also want to leave me your number, I'll reach out to you and we can have a conversation personally. We can even meet for coffee personally. Obviously, the next 7 days is kind of a killer. But I'd be more happy to exchange my number with you so we can talk.
I'm going to connect you because indeed she's established a foundation for her son, the Copeland Foundation, and they're going to have a big event on March 3rd. And so what I want to do is in the interest of fairness, because I've given a nice chunk of time to you to be fair, and I just want to be fair to everybody else. And in fact, we also have Gregory's information. I will send you her information. I will send this to your press officer and to the gentleman who was asking about pedestrian safety. And I want to thank you. Let me just say this to you before the audience. I want to thank you for being so open and for taking the time to talk with us today. I really am deeply appreciative, as are we. I just had a couple more questions for you because, this is the time to ask these questions, and I'm seeing the questions that have been coming in. And a lot of people, Mr. Vallis, are just very, very concerned about the police. I mean, the social contract, the spiritual contracts between police and the citizenry is broken. And when you talk to African Americans, when you talk to Black Americans, those of us who are descended from slaves, we know the history of the police going back to slave catchers. We get that. And so that stays with us, and the behavior hasn't changed. And I want to know you help the police with their contracts. That's important. And you got certain guarantees in there for accountability, but we need much more. Anjanette Young needs more. Tyree Nichols needs more. And we need to reverse this, right? We need to turn this around so that we are looking at, okay, what about the contract between the police and the people? Because that's what's missing here. You got Sergeant Watts, you got that scandal, and you have all of the police officers who were affiliated with that scandal. They have desk duty. They're still police officers. They're still walking around with the badge. There's something that's that's wrong here. And then, you know, we have people who have engaged in bad behaviors who support you. They've been very forward. And, you know, with support, you know, we've run for president, Congress, and everything else. You know, the people who support you, you kind of get twinned with them. And I want to know from you, these people who support the Proud Boys, these people who have been guilty of misdeeds against the people who support you, what will you do about them?
Yeah, well, first of all, you know, I don't know who supported me, who supports the Proud Boys, and insofar as like union leaders supporting me, the FOP is supporting me because the rank and file overwhelmingly indicated that they wanted to support me. And look, the sergeants, it's the same reason the sergeants supported me. You know, if I demonstrated anything with my ability to get both the city and, you know, and the FOP together to get a contract with all the accountability provisions in it, that probably kept 2,000 additional cops from leaving, is that I can negotiate with anyone. Look, I negotiated 2 consecutive contracts with the CPU after they had struck 8 times the previous 15 years. So, you know, I'm going to negotiate with the CTU leadership, even though the CTU leadership isn't going to be supportive of me. So I don't get to pick who the union leaders are. I simply have to negotiate with them, and I think that's been demonstrated. But let me just say on the policing, there's no one who's more zero tolerance than me. In fact, you can't on one hand somebody say, well, he's going to be soft on the police when I have a record of being zero tolerance, whether it was a city budget director or for that matter running the schools, having an absolute zero tolerance level for misconduct. I've always been very aggressive about that. What I'm going to do with the police is I'm gonna professionalize the ranks, so we're not just promoting people into leadership positions based on friends and families. I'm going to return the police to the local police beats. So at police beats, you have police walking CPA platforms to stations. You have the police covering the local beats, so their 911 calls can be responded to. And we have officers who the public knows by name and by badge number, and who know the public. I'm also going to create the type of supervisory infrastructure. So we have one sergeant supervising 10 officers, and we have training officers in the field monitoring the officers. You can't have 30 officers with one. You can't have one sergeant trying to manage 30 officers. There's been some nights in the 11th district, the most violent district in the country, and when they only had half the beat cars, and there was not even a single sergeant on duty. I mean, that's a disaster. So there will be police accountability. But I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to recruit the next generation of police officers from the communities. There are 42 ROTC programs, 7 military high schools in Chicago, all thrive me. Carver Military High School, Brownsville Military High School. There are 10,000 young people. 86% of whom are Black and Latino, 46% of whom are women, who could easily find careers as police officers, as firefighters, as EMTs, as nurses. So I'm going to create a pipeline so we can draw people from the community into the police department. Mm-hmm. So the community is a reflection. So the police department is a reflection of the community. And that's something I've talked about, and that's something that I've done in other places. So I believe that I will be able to bring the type of leadership and accountability to the police while ensuring that there are police officers in the community who are known to the community and who know the community, so that mistakes are not making. And I will work overtime to ensure that the next generation of police are individuals who are drawn from and reflect the community, because there's no better way to have accountability than to have a police department that actually comes from the community that they serve.
Well, you know, because I have grown up with some wonderful police officers, you know, because in part my father was protected by Chicago police officers, and they were off duty. Right. Some of them were also on duty, wink nod, if you know what I mean, but we get it. But they ended up becoming very dear friends of ours. But the concern, and I know police who, my friend Adrienne Stanley was the only Black woman to be a commander in the Chicago Police Department. She died of cancer. One of my classmates from Whitney Young, brilliant woman. She was going to become a veterinarian, and she decided to go and become a police officer. She shot up the ranks very quickly. And so I have known some really solid, wonderful people. And when we're in trouble, Mr. Vallis, we still call for the police. But that's what you do. But what we need accountability. We need the Richard Hagans, if you will, to be rooted out. To be fair to you, Richard Hagan, who was involved in the Laquan McDonald shooting, because he was very vocal, and when he's that vocal, when someone who was as involved in the Laquan McDonald murder as he was, when he comes out and he is so enthusiastic about you, it makes people uneasy. And so with the Richard Hagans, I'm not saying that we should cast them out into the wild blue yonder, but people who break the social contract, people who look at us, who look at all of us as them, they shouldn't be police officers, Mr. Vallis, because us should be we. Right? I mean, we're all in the same boat here. We're all in the same city. We're all in the same country. We're all in the same world. We need that.
Yeah, Santita, I agree with you. Look, I come from a family of 6 veterans. My friends used to come with me to push all the time. You know what I mean? And I used to get really nervous because they were young then, and I was hoping that they would, be quiet and not, get too rambunctious, while they were going through the service. You all remember them. They spent time there and stuff like that. And, I come from a family. My wife was a police officer. My boy's a police officer. So I did that firefighters. We got teachers. We have small Greek restaurant owners. I mean, we're a family of public servants. Look, I am tough on accountability, but let me point out that all the candidates are now talking law enforcement because the violent crime rate has escalated. I will promote the type of leadership who will have a zero tolerance for police misconduct, and we won't suppress Inspector General investigations, and we'll have complete transparency. And we will create the type of infrastructure within the police department so that there's effective supervision. So like in the military, you have a sergeant supervising the trained veteran sergeant supervising 10 officers, and we will have training and redundant training. But let me tell you what we'll also have too. We will also rebuild the social service infrastructure, reopen the mental health centers, open opioid and drug addiction centers, have crisis counseling centers, have programs for returning citizens, individuals who have been incarcerated, who can't get housing, can't get access to jobs, because we need for the police department to have a social service buffer, because the police can't be responding to cases involving mental health or individuals who have drug addictions. I mean, unfortunately, the police are not trained to be social service providers, and so every police department needs to have a network of social service supports that they can work in tandem with to address the community needs. So many of the 911 calls are actually calls involving individuals who have mental health issues. So we'll build that social service infrastructure.
Yeah, because that's what I felt, that it was really a misnomer to call it defund the police, because to me it was about reimagining funding of police so that police and everyone can get the supports that they need. And I'm gonna hold to that, because the fact is it takes a whole village to make someone well. And the police should be on the back. They should be on the backside of that. So my question for you then is, given when you look at crime and you take schools, Black people it was illegal for us to learn to read. So when you shut our schools down, it has a particular resonance with us. Everybody's got their thing, Mr. Vallis. But for us, for Black people, it would be education, because we were denied that. So when you shut down the schools, when we shut down small businesses, which happened under COVID, the only people who really survived, and this as from a family of small business owners, it was a few small businesses, but many of them went out of business and they weren't able to come back. There is so much intersectionality. And I guess what I'm I'm asking you if you see the intersectionality, the closing of the schools, the denying of a full-throated healthcare system for people. Many Black people tried to get tested for COVID initially. We couldn't get tested, but if you're on the North Shore, the North Side, you got tested routinely. We need not just why do we have crime? We don't have schools. We don't have education. You have a lot of LeBron Jameses out here and Serena Williams. Their schools have been closed. So the tennis teams they could have been on, the basketball teams, the football teams, they no longer have access. So my question is for you, what will you do about that?
Yeah, well, Santita, first of all, when I ran the Chicago Public Schools, I did not close a single school. Yeah. And even when we had snow days, I keep the buildings open because I realized that there were a lot of parents who still had to work and the kids needed somewhere to go. And you know that. I mean, I didn't have to close a single school. Rahm Emanuel shut down the 50 schools without any, which I thought was
and how can and given the fact that what they did, and you continue to point to the fact that what they did was harmful. How can we repair? Let's repair the breach, because what they did. What can we do to repair and restore?
Yeah, let me also point out that look, I did when COVID hit. I did a lot of podcasts about how to make sure that the schools were following the proper mitigations. I met with the Illinois Association of School Administrators. I was very active on Facebook and on LinkedIn. And, I was finance chair for 10 years with Sean Penn's organization called CORE. And besides doing relief in Haiti and disaster relief in like 5 other Caribbean countries, we did 2.7 million vaccinations in 8 different cities. We opened 5 vaccination sites in Chicago. It was interesting when they had the press conference announcing the 5 sites. I got disinvited because obviously the mayor didn't want me at the press conference, even though I was on board. So the point is, I've always aggressively sought to provide for the needs of the community. But what we have to, shutting schools down for 15 consecutive months, even after the science indicated that there was minimal impact on children, or for that matter, schools are not disease starters. That was a disaster because since 2019, 200 school age youth have been murdered. 95% of those school age youth were not in school; they're not attending school. And a report came out last year that said 8% of the arrests for murder, 50% of the arrests for carjackings were school age youth who were not in school. 95% of whom were not in school. So the spike in crime can be directly linked to the shutting down of the schools. Mm-hmm. Exactly your point. What I will do is I will open these schools in the evenings, through the weekends, over the summer, during the holidays. I will put work-study programs in these schools for the high school kids. That means the unions. That means contractors. That means city departments will be required to offer paid work-study internships for these high school kids. So like the Crystal Rain model, young people can go to school and at the same time get a part-time job that pays them, and that introduces them into the work world. And we will reach out to reclaim those tens of thousands of young people, 18, 19, 21, 20, 21, 22, who have left. And we can take these empty or mostly empty buildings and we can reopen them as alternative schools for these in a way that's seen in the community as the police reaching out and working and supporting the community, because the only way we're going to defeat crime is to have close community cooperation. But I will reopen schools. I will reinvest in the South and West Sides. I've talked at length about how to do that. I will reopen the mental health centers and open opioid drug addiction centers and crisis counseling centers. And I will have a program for returning citizens, those individuals who have been released from incarceration, who are sometimes barred from jobs, barred from housing, barred from accessing social services. Yet in some communities, they comprise a very large percentage of the population. And those are things I've talked about. The public safety stuff draws a lot of the attention, but I've talked and I've worked on those other things for years. For a year and a half, I did work for U.S. Attorney General Sally H. in the Justice Department on reentry programs for returning citizens. So that is as big a part of my agenda, and my commitment to the community is to meet their needs in a holistic way, just not in a public safety way.
Well, is there anything else that you would like to say? Is there anything that you believe has been unsaid here?
You know, it's been a great morning. It was a long night last night, so I actually not only set my alarm, but I made sure some coffee.
I'm so sorry. I lose friends with this early morning show, but thank you for being with us, Lord.
It's always a delight, and look, anytime you want me to come on now or after I'm there, I'll be there. Any question you ever want to put to me, do not hesitate. You've always been great. You've always been objective, and you've always been, you've always given people a platform to face the issues and to answer the tough questions. I just want to thank you for that, and I want to tell you what a privilege it's been to spend my morning with you. You got me off to a great start. I'm now energized.
Well, and I want to thank you, and I want to thank you for taking these questions, because it's kind of tough for me, because these are people I know and people who I personally like. That having been said, I'm a steward of the radio, and so I have to do really the will of the people, and they have these questions, and so I want to, and I also want you to be able to answer them. And so I want to thank you for that. And I thank you for your willingness to serve. I have not always agreed with the decisions you've made. That having been said, I don't agree with a lot of decisions I made 20 years ago or even last week. No, I'm very serious. No, we grow and we change, and we see and we see things, and we can see things differently. And, and I want to give you the space for that. That having been said, I'm going to hold you to really strengthening our public school system, not just charter schools, but public schools where you have everybody in, nobody out, because we need all the athletically gifted, the vocationally gifted. They need a place to be. We still need the Kenwoods. We need the South Shores. We need the Fingers. We need the Inglewoods. We need. I went to a Whitney Young, and I worked very hard to get in. And yes, and I had top scores, everybody, because I knew Walter Jacobson was going to make me the subject of a newscast if I got in there under a principal's prerogative. I didn't have that kind of space because my father was so controversial. I that. I didn't have that space. And so someone walked up to me at my graduation from Whitney Young, and she said, and she grabbed me by my arm, and I was furiously walking through the crowd, Mr. Vallis, because someone had told me that they had found someone with a gun. So immediately my mind went to, oh my goodness, someone is trying to kill my father. So I couldn't even have that moment. I'm running through the crowd, desperately trying to find my father. And I got to tell him, we got to get in the car. We got to get out of here. But this woman literally held me, and she was squeezing my arm very tightly. She said, I wanted to know if your father practiced what he preached. So I looked in this program, and I wanted to see where you ranked. I said, wow, thank God I was in the top 10. Thank God I was a Merit Scholar. Thank God. So I didn't, but you know what? But I will say this. Okay, I went to Whitney Young when there was only one. But what I'm saying is that I want everybody I want every school to be as resourced as Whitney Young was. I mean, it was so resourced, Mr. Vallis, that Joe Hannon, who you remember was the superintendent of schools, he brought his daughter out of her school and put her there. Jackie Vaughn put her son at that school. I mean, I looked up, looking back, there were, I mean, and many of the kids who went to the school, they had parents who were in the daily administration. They were precinct captains and all that. We were none of that. I just want every child to have a chance. I want every child to have a chance. And if we can work together, if people want to have their charter schools, great. But the charter schools, you know what? They should not take from these public schools. Our public schools need money, and they need resources.
Yeah, Santita, we have enough charter schools. God knows they have been many more charter schools than we ever contemplated opening. I mean, like I said, we have been 15, and of course we had these network of alternative schools for the kids that have been lost in the system. But the bottom line is, I just want to make sure that all the public school children are in good buildings. And if we got a charter school in a warehouse, and you got an empty public building down the street, and the community wants to invite that charter school to move their kids into their building and enroll kids from that local community, I have no problem with that. But I'm with you. Every school should be magnetized. It's why I not only opened more magnet schools, and I put a magnet school in every region. So when they wanted to build, Northside College Prep, I built Peyton before Cabrini Green got torn down, and I did a neighborhood set aside, and I built Jones, and I rebuilt Wimble and King with some magnets, and I bought Mendel and turned it into Gwendolyn Brooks and the Brownsville Military Academy. So and then I put magnet programs in neighborhood schools. So I passed in Morgan Park, the IB programs. We went into something like 18 neighborhood high schools because I wanted to magnetize them. So you are right. Every school should be a magnet school. Every school should be a school that's children that parents want to send their kids to, and that's my commitment. And in this campaign, a lot of people are going to try to blame me for things that happened 6, 7, 8, 10 years after I left. At the end of the day, when Rahm Emanuel was closing schools, or I was in New Orleans rebuilding schools, or securing the largest FEMA settlement in history to put every single child in New Orleans in either a brand new school or a completely renovated school. So, but I appreciate the opportunity to come before your audience. I'll always be here anytime you want me. I will tell you, I've really benefited from my relationship with Bush. Doris Davenport helped us do the MBE WB program, which I think your family will acknowledge was one of the most successful around. Jeanette Wilson managed my crisis fund, if you remember, and Ray Anderson, who Reverend Jackson introduced me to, served as my intergovernmental chief and Washington lobbyist for 3 decades in 4 different cities. God bless him. Ray is in D.C. right now. He helped me in Chicago. He helped me in Philadelphia. He helped me in New Orleans. He helped me in Bridgeport, Connecticut. I've been blessed by my association with your father and his organization, and I've learned from them. But I'm still learning, and I've picked up a couple things this morning too. So thanks so much for the invitation. Forward me those numbers, if you will, or text me the numbers so I can reach out to the people that I promised.
I am going to do that as soon as possible. Just let me know you have my number. Let me know where I need to send it, and I will get that. I will send that to you immediately. But, I want to thank you for giving us the time. Like I said, I've given every candidate 30 minutes, but because the demand was, people wanted to speak with you, and they couldn't get into all the lines. So I got in as many phone callers as I could, but this is one of the most engaged shows I've ever had. And so I want to thank you for making the time to speak to the people. And should you become mayor, I'm going to hold you. I'm going to hold you to it. I'm going to have you come on because the thing is, I just want, my brother Jonathan, Congressman Jackson says, I don't want to fix the blame. I want to fix the problem. That's
Right.
Mr. Vallis. That's what I want to do. And everyone, just for the record, he wanted me to call him Paul. I cannot do that. It's just too much. No,
Well, I appreciate it.
I can't do that. But yes,
You have a glorious day, and to you and your dear and your many listeners, God bless, and look forward to talking again soon.
absolutely. Blessings to you, and have a wonderful day. And thank you for sharing these 90 minutes with us. You've given us a whole lot of time today, Mr. Vallis. Blessings to you. And I'm going to forward those 2 numbers to you ASAP.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. God bless you. Well, everybody, we were engaged. Thank you so much. Thank you. And I thank you for D. Ray and Mark and L. Stanley Davis. And next time you all got to call in, everybody. You got to call in. You got to go on and get involved. Because while I'm trying to do the interviews, trying to keep up with this, it'll help me to lose my train of thought. It's your platform. You all have to call in. Okay. So, but I hope that you enjoyed the show today. I hope you got something out of it. No. D. Ray, just so that you know, I'm going to reach out to Mayor Lightfoot today. I've been reaching out to people and just one by one. So now I've got to get Congressman Garcia, who I plan to get. Mayor, I'm writing this down, Mayor Lightfoot, Dr. Wilson, and Alderman King will be on tomorrow, and Brandon Johnson, and that's it. So I will have gotten everybody in, because I started with Mr. Sawyer. I got Mr. Buckner. I got Mr. Green, and let me see, who am I missing? I got Mr. Vallis. So I just need guarantees from Mr. Garcia, Brandon Johnson, and Mayor Lightfoot, and I'm going to work on that. Okay. So it's not that D. Ray, it's not that she has refused to come on the show. I have not asked her yet, but I'm going to do that. Okay. So I want to thank you. Dr. Wilson will be on tomorrow, as will Alderman King, and so I look forward to speaking with them as well. Whew, y'all are a lot. It's been great. God bless you. And Board Op, you've been great.